Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. The day Ida told me she was pregnant, I felt a surge of joy mingled with bewilderment. We had always agreed that children weren't in our immediate plans, focusing instead on our careers. So, her unexpected announcement, delivered over dinner with an anxious smile, sparked conflicting emotions. Despite the surprise, the idea of becoming a father kindled a warmth inside me I hadn't anticipated. But alongside the joy, a gnawing suspicion took root. Aida's recent behavior, nervous glances, late nights, and guarded phone calls, didn't align with our typical open-book relationship. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere at home grew increasingly strained. Aida's once vibrant demeanor was now often marred by silence and withdrawal. The joy of our news was overshadowed by the unspoken tensions that crept into our interactions. I decided to confront her, needing to understand the sudden barriers between us. "Ida, we need to talk. Is everything okay with you? With us?" I asked one evening, finding her alone in our living room, the pregnancy books untouched on the coffee table. She hesitated, her eyes flickering with a shadow I couldn't quite decipher. "Everything's fine, just tired," she murmured, but her voice betrayed her, trembling on the edge of tears. The doubts I harbored refused to be stilled, driving me to do something I never thought I'd consider. One chilly October evening, I came home earlier than usual, driven by a gut feeling that refused to be ignored. The scene that greeted me shattered my world: Ida, in our bed, with a man I had never seen before. The intimacy and laughter that stopped abruptly upon my entrance left no room for doubt. In that frozen moment, as Ida scrambled for words, the man beside her, tall, with an air of arrogance, stood up, adjusting his shirt. "I think you should know, I'm the father," he said bluntly, his coldness slicing through the room like a blade. The shock was palpable, a physical blow that drained the color from the world. The following hours were a blur of anger, hurt, and shattered illusions. Aida's tearful apologies and pleas for forgiveness were lost in the storm of my betrayal. Our discussions turned into arguments, laden with her confessions and my disbelief. I couldn't stay. The home we had built together was now a prison of memories too painful to endure. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too fresh. With every fiber of my being screaming for escape, for retribution, I decided to act. My love turned to disdain, and I set my mind on a path that would sever our ties completely. "I want a divorce, Ida. I can't do this," I declared, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. The decision was met with her sobbing acquiescence, a mix of relief and devastation that mirrored the complexity of our entangled emotions. In the weeks that followed, I orchestrated the end of our marriage with surgical precision. The divorce proceedings were swift, fueled by my newfound resolve and her lack of resistance. As I watched her life unravel, her reputation among friends, her financial security, I felt a bitter satisfaction. But beneath the layers of anger, a question lingered, haunting my newfound solitude: could revenge ever truly mend a broken heart? As I turned the key in the lock of what was once our home for the last time, the weight of my actions and their irreversible consequences settled around me. The road ahead was unclear, the story of us closed, but the intrigue of my next steps was just beginning. The days following the divorce were filled with a simmering rage that I couldn't quench. Every morning, as I sipped my coffee alone in the silent kitchen, the images of betrayal replayed in my mind like a cruel loop. I decided it wasn't enough. Ida needed to feel the weight of her actions, not just through the dissolution of our marriage but in the very fabric of her daily life. My plan was to ensure that every aspect of her existence felt the echo of what she had done. One cold morning, armed with resolve, I started by contacting mutual friends. The conversations were casual at first, sprinkled with concerns and vague hints, but slowly I began to reveal the truth. "Can you believe it? After all these years, Ida was cheating on me, and she's pregnant with his child," I disclosed to a close friend, Mark, over a phone call. His shock was palpable, and I knew word would spread like wildfire. "Man, that's rough. I had no idea, Mark replied, his voice thick with disbelief. And to think, I found them in our bed, I added, twisting the knife deeper, ensuring the details were vivid enough to evoke sympathy and outrage. The calls continued, each one a calculated step to isolate her from the circle she once called friends. Next, I turned to the digital realm. Aida's social media were filled with images of our happier times, her updates often painting the picture of a perfect life. I began posting subtle, melancholic quotes and comments, painting myself as the victim of a tragic love story. It wasn't long before mutual connections started piecing things together, their comments under her posts turning from supportive to questioning. Hope you find what you're looking for, Ida. Sometimes the cost of happiness is too high, I wrote under a picture of her smiling. The transformation in public perception was swift. Friends who once adored her began withdrawing their affections, and her online presence became a battleground of whispers and judgments. As if social and digital ostracism weren't enough, I knew her professional life remained untouched. Ida worked in a small marketing firm, and her reputation there was as pristine as it had been among our friends. I crafted an anonymous email filled with insinuations, sent to her boss and a few key coworkers. The email hinted at personal indiscretions affecting her professional judgment. I think you should be aware of some concerning behavior that might be affecting business, the email read, cloaked in concern but designed to sow seeds of doubt about her integrity and professionalism. Days passed, and through mutual acquaintances, I heard whispers of her troubles at work. Meetings being cancelled, cold shoulders from colleagues she once laughed with, and an uncomfortable scrutiny that followed her every move. As I sat back and watched the destruction from afar, a part of me felt victorious, but another part, a quieter, more reflective voice, began to question the morality of my vendetta. Was the depth of my retribution just another form of self-harm? Was I any better than her in this twisted game of revenge? One evening, as I mulled over these thoughts, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ida. "Can we meet? Please, I think we need to talk," it read. The request caught me off guard. Despite everything, a part of me longed for closure, or perhaps an explanation that would make sense of it all. With mixed emotions, I typed a response, setting the stage for what I hoped would be the final act of our drama. "Okay, Ida. Tomorrow at the old cafe. 5 p.m. As I sent the message, I realized that this meeting could either be the closure I needed or the fuel to further flames of vengeance. The line between justice and cruelty felt blurred, and as I prepared for tomorrow, the intrigue of what lay ahead kept my nerves taut with anticipation. The cafe was dimly lit and nearly empty, a stark contrast to the bustling hub it once was during our earlier days together. I arrived early, the weight of the upcoming conversation settling heavily in my stomach. As I sipped on a bitter espresso, my thoughts churned with a mix of anger and a strange, residual affection. Every clink of the doorbell sent a jolt through me, until finally, Ida walked in. She looked fragile, the vibrancy that once defined her seemingly dimmed by the recent events. Her eyes met mine, filled with remorse and something else, fear, perhaps, or desperation. She took the seat across from me, her hands trembling slightly as she placed them on the table. "Thank you for coming," she started, her voice a soft whisper. "I know after everything, I don't have the right to ask for your time." I nodded, my expression stoic, keeping my cards close to my chest. "You said we needed to talk. So talk." Ida took a deep breath, her eyes not leaving mine. "I owe you an apology, not just for what happened but for the hurt I've caused. I was selfish, and I've ruined everything good between us." Her words hung in the air, thick with regret. I waited, knowing there was more. "And I need to explain," she continued. "Not to excuse my actions, but to give you the truth I should have shared long ago. The man you saw, he was from my past, someone I thought I had left behind. When I found out about the pregnancy, I was confused, scared. It brought back old feelings, old mistakes." The story poured out of her, each word laced with sorrow. She spoke of old wounds, fears of inadequacy about motherhood, and the rekindled contact with a past that she couldn't shake off. As she talked, the narrative I had built around her betrayal started to crack, revealing the complexity of her inner turmoil. "But why didn't you come to me? Why him?" My voice broke the flow of her confession, my own pain surfacing despite my attempts to remain detached. "I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of how you'd react, that you'd leave me. And in my fear, I pushed you away first, in the worst way possible." The cafe around us faded into a blur as our conversation delved deeper, not just into her betrayal, but into the years of unspoken fears and unmet needs that had marred our marriage. It was a dance of revelation and understanding, painful yet strangely cathartic. As Aida's story unfolded, my resolve for vengeance began to wane. The black and white narrative of betrayal I had clung to was graying at the edges, revealing the messy, painful human emotions beneath. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Ida concluded, her voice steadier now, "just that you understand the truth. I am so sorry for the pain I've caused you." We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us thick with shared history and newfound truths. Finally, I spoke, the anger in my voice softened by a reluctant empathy. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Ida. Not now, maybe not ever. But I appreciate your honesty. It's more than what I had yesterday." Standing up, I looked down at her one last time, the remnants of love and betrayal mingling in my heart. "I hope you find peace, Ida. I truly do." As I walked out of the cafe, the evening air felt less oppressive. The path ahead was still uncertain, and the pain of betrayal still throbbed in my chest, but the weight of unrelenting revenge had lifted slightly. Maybe, in the end, understanding was a form of retribution in itself, one that allowed me to move forward, if not completely healed, then at least with a clearer vision of what lay beyond the wreckage of our past. The intrigue of how I would rebuild lingered, a silent promise of new beginnings amidst the ruins. The weeks following our last conversation were filled with tumultuous emotions. Aida's confessions at the cafe had shifted something within me, but not enough to extinguish the burning need for a definitive closure, one that left no room for past shadows to darken my future. I resolved to cut all ties, but a part of me demanded more than just separation, it craved a reckoning. I meticulously planned my next steps, focusing on a plan that would ensure Ida and the man who shattered our lives could never hurt anyone again the way they hurt me. My strategy was cold, calculated, and designed to leave a lasting impact. I began by gathering evidence of their affair, including emails and messages I discreetly obtained that painted a clear picture of their deception. With the evidence in hand, I approached the man's wife, a woman oblivious to the storm brewing in her domestic haven. We met at a quiet park, her initial hesitation turning into shock as I laid out the proof before her tear-filled eyes. "I thought you should know," I said, my voice devoid of warmth. "You deserve the truth." Her gratitude was tinged with devastation, but her next words fueled my plan further. "I'll make sure he regrets this," she whispered, a fierce resolve hardening her features. Together, we orchestrated a legal and social onslaught that left him reeling. His reputation, both personal and professional, crumbled under the weight of public scorn and legal ramifications. His career took a hit from which it would never recover, his financial stability shattered by the divorce settlement and ensuing lawsuits. Meanwhile, Aida's life became the target of my next move. Using my tech skills, I crafted an anonymous campaign that brought her darkest secrets into the spotlight. I exposed her liaisons and lies through calculated leaks that seemed to originate from various sources, ensuring it was impossible to trace them back to me. Her professional life was tarnished, her social circles dissolved, and the isolation she once forced upon me was now her constant companion. As the final piece of my plan fell into place, I felt a hollow victory. There was no joy in her downfall, no peace in the wake of her destruction. But there was a certain satisfaction in knowing that the chaos she brought into my life was now hers to endure. Months passed, and the dust settled on the ruins of what was once our shared life. I had moved to a new city, started a new job, and built a quiet existence that bore no traces of past betrayals. The bitter taste of revenge had faded, replaced by a somber acceptance. One evening, as I walked home from work, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The text was brief: "Meet me at the old cafe. There's something you need to see. Ida." Curiosity piqued, I found myself standing once again in the dimly lit cafe, the scene of many pivotal moments in my life. Ida was already there, looking worn and defeated. Before I could speak, she slid an envelope across the table. "I'm leaving the country," she said quietly. "But before I go, you need to see this." Inside the envelope were documents and a paternity test. The father wasn't the man I had caught her with, it was another figure from her past, a fleeting mistake made long before our marriage crumbled. "I never meant to hurt you with more lies," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "But I couldn't leave knowing you had the wrong story." The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. My revenge, based on a lie, had destroyed more than just the guilty. It had obliterated the innocent. We parted that night, the final threads of our connection severed by the harsh truths and harsher consequences of our actions. As I walked away, the chilling grasp of what I had done settled deep within me. My quest for vengeance had not only broken Ida, it had also irreparably fractured my own soul. The surprise of my own capacity for destruction was a bitter pill to swallow, a reminder that in the game of revenge, there are no winners, only survivors marred by the battles they fought. As the city lights blurred into the night, the echo of our ruined lives whispered a haunting lullaby, a lament for all that was lost in the name of retribution.